Number one is that, first of all the shops are open, all the shops are really well stocked, even with fresh things like, for instance, fruits and vegetables, and you just don't see any sort of degree of panic anywhere.
A few moments later.
A lot of the shops here are closed and have been closed since the military confrontation started exactly a week ago.
So I want to discuss the current CNN propaganda tour that is taking place within the country of Iran itself, because if you did not hear, the Iranian government recently granted CNN the sole media access of any American or Western outlet to actually go into Iran itself and report, obviously, with the permission of the government. And this has gone as hysterically stupid as you might expect. As one example, days ago, CNN was widely ridiculed after their reporter showed up to this gas station in a very remote, rural part of the country that has not been hit much by the fighting, and essentially went there to say, hey, look, the gas is full, the shelves are full, everyone seems to be living life as normal. Clearly, there's not much of a war going on, right? Clearly, Iran is stable and doing perfectly fine, to which everyone collectively said, hey, genius, have you maybe considered that's what the Iranian government wanted you to see, right? Like, obviously, it's absurd to suggest that everything in Iran is perfectly normal right now. It's ridiculous to pretend as if there's no instability happening, but we fully understand why the Iranian government might have a vested interest in trying to project that image to you. I mean, this is not hard to understand, and even days later, CNN is currently being forced to backtrack on some of those suggestions. Now, here's what I will say. On one hand, in total fairness to CNN, you could maybe argue there is some journalistic value into being able to go into Iran, even if it's propaganda. Hey, some coverage is better than no coverage. But at the same time, we really have to ask ourselves the question, of all of the Western media outlets that the Iranian government could have chosen to allow to come into the country, why was it solely CNN that was granted there? Especially considering you're talking about a country that does not have general press freedom, so it's not just, oh, hey, press, come and report. No, they specifically chose CNN. Why? Because likely they were under the belief that CNN will do their bidding, right? It'll be beneficial for them to basically bring this useful idiot into the country and do the whole Jane Fonda and run propaganda. So I honestly, I think that says a lot about CNN, that they were chosen here by the Iranian government. Most trusted name in news. They call themselves, by the way. And I think it further has to cast doubts on the overall accuracy of some of the mainstream media reporting that you're even getting about this conflict, because it's no secret, right, that all of the liberal American media despises Donald Trump. But even secondly, from the perspective of honesty, you have to also question, well, if you have a reporter in the country and there's sort of this agreement between the network, its leadership, and the Iranian government to, hey, we're going to have this special privilege, you have to also imagine that kind of casts doubts on CNN's ability to impartially, fairly, and objectively actually report what's going on in Iran, right? You're actually kind of serving as an asset of Iran. You understand, by the way, if you piss them off too much, something could happen to your reporter who's basically at the whims right now of the Iranian government. A lot of questions to be had there, but surely, right? Brian Stelter claims, totally objective, totally impartial network. That's why they were chosen as the useful idiots of the Ayatollah. Nothing else to see here. Yeah, I'm sure. That said, I do want to get into this here today. We'll react to some of the nonsense that they've been running and the current state of this propaganda tour. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support. It also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, I do want to show you the broadcast out of Friday as CNN tries to go into Iran and pretend as if everything is fine, because even without their admission that they're running state propaganda, which they did admit, you start to notice a lot is wrong with the picture here.
Taking a quick break for a coffee along the way. We've been driving for several hours. There's a couple of things that we've noticed. Number one is that, first of all the shops are open. All the shops are really well stocked, even with fresh things like, for instance, fruits and vegetables. Coffee, obviously, also available as well. And then also the gas stations. There's no long lines as gas stations. Fuel seems readily available, and you just don't see any sort of degree of panic anywhere.
Now, in total fairness, this did air the day before the strikes on oil facilities that we saw on Saturday, but it still doesn't matter. You see the utter ridiculousness of this, right? So the Iranian government took us on a state tour, showed us the part of the country that they want us to see, and noticeably, it doesn't even seem like he has a gun pointed to his head or any pressure to say this. Oh, no, I'm enjoying a nice cup of coffee. Everything seems fine. They're not dealing with shortages. The people are relatively relaxed. Yeah, have you considered the Iranian government took you to that specific portion of the country for a reason, right? It's like going on a tour of North Korea, you know, the state tours that they allow some people to do, and they show you the capital, they show you the wealthiest part where people are not starving, and you're like, well, I don't see people starving in North Korea, so clearly that's not happening, right? And bear in mind, too, we're talking about a country, folks, that is approximately the size of Alaska. It is 2.5 times the size of Texas. Obviously, there are remote and rural parts in this nation where the war has largely not affected it, especially those that are far away from any potential nuclear, ballistic missile, or oil infrastructure. And so, yes, it's not implausible to say you could easily find certain places in Iran where there's not fighting going on and everything seems relatively fine. Heck, you're probably talking likewise about places that the Iranian government, the regime itself, doesn't even have a super strong foothold over. It's sort of just rural, remote areas where people live in their own communities, right? Going about their own lives. We know that is the case. And of course, hilariously, the CNN editors here had to since add a caveat to all of their reports from within Iran, as you can see. So the CNN reporter is on his way to Tehran, amidst the whole war. The caveat here, though, stating CNN is operating in Iran only with government permission. So yes, what they are admitting indeed is that it is state propaganda. And yet, when the reporter goes live on TV, he doesn't seem to fully acknowledge that. He's just like, oh, well, everything seems fine. Life is going normal. It's just like, why do you think that is? Why do you think that is, genius? But anyways, take a look here at what they tried to air just the other day.
We just crossed the border and are now inside of Iran. The Iranian government has granted us a visa to come here and to report from the Islamic Republic of Iran. We're now trying to make our way to the capital, Tehran, as fast as possible. But of course, the distances in this huge country are immense, and we know it's going to take many, many hours for us to get there. We also don't know what the situation on the road to Tehran is going to look like, how many checkpoints there's going to be. And of course, we know at the same time there are massive combat operations also going on. The United States and Israel are continuing their huge aerial campaign against targets inside of Iran. At the same time, the Iranians continue to retaliate, not just with their ballistic missiles, but with their drones, mostly hitting Israel, but then also American military installations, especially in the Gulf region, but in general, in the Middle East. In total, the Iranians are saying that they can continue this campaign for a very long time. They say that their missile arsenal is still immense, and they haven't even used some of their most modern missiles. But we also, of course, know that the place that we aim to go to, Tehran, has been under almost sustained attacks with massive airstrikes going on there and also huge damage being caused, and of course, many people also having been harmed.
Oh yeah, really, CNN? Is that what they told you personally themselves? That they still have extensive missile capacity left. Everything is fine. They can keep fighting the war forever. And definitely they didn't pan-pick you to feed that to Western audiences to make it sound more credible, because the Iranian government understands that everyone in the West thinks their state propaganda, their official state media is a joke. But hey, we can let CNN into the country and have them try to do it for us instead, right? But perhaps I don't know if I want to say hilarious part, but maybe the fitting part of this whole story is, you remember that CNN reporter days ago talking about how, everything is open. The rural part of Iran, a lot of stuff is still on the shelves. Nobody's in a panic. The moment they do actually arrive to the capital of Tehran, the picture gets a lot different. In fact, as of just yesterday evening, CNN's Frederick Pleitgen is now speaking to shopkeepers and customers in Iran's capital, who say not only have sales drastically decreased, but they're also worried for their lives. Oh, gee, really, CNN? So you mean to tell me that now in a different part of the country where the active conflict is actually going on, oh yeah, the stores are not all open for business and doing perfectly fine. Oh yeah, people are worried. Life is not going on as normal. What a big shock, right? We cannot believe this. Oh, as it turns out, ladies and gentlemen, Iran is a big country. The war is not happening in all parts of the country. Wow. We really needed the most trusted name in news to inform us of this, right? But all right, take a listen to his new reporting just this morning out of Tehran proper, where he is now reporting a much less rosy picture for Iran proper itself. Take a listen.
CNN is the first American network allowed into Iran since the beginning of the war. Our senior international correspondent, Fred Pleiken, and his team are in Tehran. And we should note that CNN can only operate in Iran with government approval. Here is Fred's report from the streets of Tehran from a few hours ago, just before some of the most recent attacks were launched against the country.
There have been a lot of airstrikes here on Tehran today. A lot of the shops here are closed and have been closed since the military confrontation started exactly a week ago. I'd say about 20% of the shops might be open. So what we've done today is we've gone to a couple of shops, spoken to the shopkeepers and also some customers just to see how they're faring.
We are definitely worried about our lives, but we have no other choice. This is my occupation, and it's about providing daily foodstuff. We cannot close the shop. We have to go to work, but with fear, while not knowing what may happen.
Well, everyone is scared. Those are bombs. It's no joke. When there's a bombing, everyone thinks of how they love their life. I'm not saying we're not afraid. Of course we are. Anyone who says they're not afraid is lying, because every human being values their life.
A drastic decline in customers at this fruit shop as well.
Our sales now are about a quarter or a fifth of what they used to be. 70 or 80% of our customers are businesses. When the war broke out, all of the companies, foreign and Iranian, closed down.
Now, the people here, of course, have already also heard that President Trump has vowed to continue to hit Iran hard, as he put it, as he demands what he calls unconditional surrender, while at the same time, the leadership of this country has said unconditional surrender is out of the question.
And that's our Fred Pleiken on the streets of Tehran. And we are very grateful for his reporting.
Really? That was it? That's what you went to Iran to report to us, that the civilians and the shopkeepers are scared because there's a war going on? You know, that's truly groundbreaking information. We could not have deduced that without the valuable journalistic work here of CNN. And look, I'm not saying that to downplay the fears of civilians. Obviously, you know, this is not their fault as random people in the country. And yes, I feel bad about it. And yes, you know, there's a human cost to war and it's brutal and savage. And I mean, look, all of that is true. Okay, so I'm not trying to mock, say, the shopkeepers or the people on the ground, because, you know, I don't doubt that that kind of aspect of the story, that part of the war, that they're scared, yes, is true. What I'm mocking here is the fact that after going through all this drama, to be the only Western journalist in the country, that's all you came back with is people are scared because there's a war? Really? Although, I mean, we know why that's the case, right? No, there's a reason why the CNN reporter was unable to ask any real political questions about what do you think about the direction of Iran going forward, because, hey, maybe perhaps people would have something to say about that. What do they think about the war itself and all of the circumstances around it? But no, right? Basic human emotion. Oh, people are feeling fear in Iran. That's all we're here to report. Okay, thank you. Go back to the main anchor now. What is the point of this? But of course, right, we know why that is. It's because the Iranian state will not allow CNN to ask anything else, which is why this whole thing, even airing something like this, is ultimately, at the end of the day, in some form or another, very dumb, shallow, and lazy Iranian state propaganda. But I think at the same time, you do notice a pattern, which is that CNN, with the approval and endorsement of the Iranian regime, is going to use the civilian angle a lot to try to drum up negative news coverage about the war and conflict itself, because sure, certainly you watch that. And again, I'm not downplaying there's the human side to the war, but when that's what you go into Iran and that's all you have to report, that's all you can say, like nothing else, certainly it does sort of drive a certain point home. And again, the Iranian government's fine with you saying that because, hey, they want people to feel sympathetic to the civilian cost of the war and all that. Like, we understand what they want to do there, but it doesn't even stop. Because even from CNN reporters, for instance, Aaron Burnett, who was the anchor there, even outside of Iran, similarly running very stupid stories like this right here. So you can see. A CNN investigation uncovers just how close U.S.-Israeli strikes have come to hitting civilian sites like schools and hospitals inside Iran. So you hear that and think, oh, well, the evil Americans are not having any regard for human life. We almost hit schools and hospitals, to which I say, wait a minute. So what you're saying, though, is that we did not hit schools and hospitals? We came close, but we didn't? So the argument there is the U.S. has actually been incredibly precise in its strikes against the Iranian government as a whole? On the surface, that sounds bad, but when you think about it, right, what kind of argument is that? Of course, it's also being widely reported that, especially in the early days when Iran actually had a lot of missiles to shoot, the countless numbers of random civilian deaths across the Middle East in places like Kuwait and Dubai and others that were being caused as a result of them shooting missiles recklessly and directly at civilians. But hey, the real story here, right, according to CNN, is that the Americans almost but didn't hit a bunch of civilian sites. Like, again, amazing argument, but I'm so glad that you're risking your own reporter and sending him right into Iran to come back with this groundbreaking information. We almost hit a hospital, but we didn't. Okay. Thank you for that, right? But all of that said, I don't want you to lose sight of the bigger picture here, because obviously this is a fairly stupid and ridiculous stunt. Most people with an IQ over 60 can see it for the state propaganda that it is. But I think watching something like this has to make you cast wider doubts on the ability of mainstream liberal media in this country to actually be accurately and fairly reporting what's happening in the conflict. And the reason I bring that up is not to deny, like direct reporting, here's what we know happened today in the war, that's like completely made up. But notice you are getting a lot of these unnamed sources type of stories out of outlets like CNN, like the New York Times. An unnamed official in the Pentagon says that Iran is actually still has 50% of their ballistic missiles or something, or hey, they're doing really well. The Trump has no plan. All of this, right? All of these, like, again, anonymous, unnamed headlines that are supposedly coming out of the Trump administration saying that, oh, the U.S. is screwed. We're in a complete panic. We're directionalists. Like, I'm not saying 100% they're not true because, who knows what sources they're bringing there. But I will say that you have to have some degree of skepticism towards these headlines, okay? Especially watching something like this. Like, we have arguably one of the most major news outlets, at least at one time used to be, right? One of the largest news outlets in this country is admitting publicly that they're running Iranian state propaganda, but surely besides that, we can trust everything else that they and their friends are saying about this conflict. I'm just going to say, use discernment, cast your judgment wisely, right? Just going to point that out. I'm not saying that everything that they report in the context of news is necessarily false, okay? Because sure, don't get me wrong. It's true in war, both sides can run propaganda. So I'm also not denying that maybe there's some propaganda coming out of, say, the Western side of the conflict. Sure, that part is true. But still, watching how these people are behaving, you just have to question whether, in their whole demoralization campaign to, try to make it look like we don't know what we're doing and we're losing. You have to ask some questions there as to what the motive is. But anyways, that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.